Mike Lanesman and welcome to another video tutorial.
This Illustrator tutorial deals with the use of the Perspective Grid tool. This tool allows us to draw elements within our illustration in a perspective, as the name implies. To start off with, let's create a new document. We would do that from the File menu and select New. Now that we have a new document, let's create a shape. I will select the rectangle tool shape and I will draw a rectangle. And we would now like to add a fill and a stroke. We know from the control panel, clicking on the arrow allows us to select a fill color. For this example, let's select the purple fill, and we can select a yellow stroke. The stroke is not that visible at the moment, because if we look in the control panel, the stroke only has a weight of 2 points. So we will increase the weight of that stroke by simply highlighting that value and using the up arrow keys on your keyboard to increase the weight of the stroke. To decrease the weight, simply use the down arrow key. I will leave that at a weight of 5. Let's create some type for this. Click on the type tool. We click to add an insertion point and we will begin typing. For this example, I'll use the words keep it in perspective. We know now that we can hit the escape key and using Shift, Command and the greater than sign will make the type enlarge, and Shift, Command and the less than sign will reduce the size of that type. We can now move it into our shape, and I would like this text to be in yellow, so that is from the fill option and we select yellow type. Let's move it over so that we're watching the smart guide. That is the green line that you're seeing, and it is now perfectly aligned to the shape. Let's draw some lines just to finish off the design. We will select the line segment tool and we'll draw a line while holding the Shift key so that we constrain it to a straight line. Again, I would like to select a yellow stroke color for this line, and I will highlight the stroke weight, and let's add a weight of 5. To duplicate this shape, we simply hover over the shape, hold the Option key or the Alt key on the Windows PC, and click and drag down while holding the Option key, and you've created a duplicate. We will simply scale this a little bit smaller and move it over until we see the smart guide, which implies that this is aligned to the top line. Just as a little design feature, I will reduce the weight of the stroke to 3. And I will duplicate this shape again by holding the Option key, dragging it down, and again making it a bit smaller and moving it over until we know that this line is lined up with all the other lines. The design is now complete. Before we place this into the perspective grid, we need to ensure that all the elements will stay together during processing with the perspective grid tool. So with the black selection tool, draw a marquee around the entire design, and we select from the object menu group. This will ensure that it all stays together. Before we proceed with the elements selected, I would now go and edit copy, so we have a copy of the shape on the clipboard. The reason will become clear in a few minutes. What we're going to do now is to put this element into the perspective grid. So we head on over to the toolbar, and this is the tool that we will be using, the perspective grid tool. Clicking on it will bring up the perspective grid. Now, we're not able to move the shape at this point, but what we do notice is in the top left-hand corner, we see this little perspective widget. It is called the perspective widget as it is referring to the side of the grid that will be active and how the object will respond when we drop it in. At this point, the blue side is active, corresponding to the left side. What we're going to do now is to head on over back to the perspective grid tool, click and hold, and select the perspective selection tool. And this is kind of where the magic really starts happening. We will now drag this element into the perspective grid, and you will notice as we drag, it adopts the perspective of the grid. Select the bottom corner and drag it, and let's fill up this left side of the grid, and this element has now been placed in the perspective grid. We'll just slide that up a little bit. Great. What we need to do now is to select the next side, the right side on the perspective widget, which implies now that the orange mesh of the perspective grid will be active. So we can click on the perspective widget on the right grid, and we'll now paste our shape that we had on the clipboard, either going edit paste or command plus V. When we now bring this shape into the grid, we now notice that the perspective has changed and is now adhering to the perspective grid. That is how we draw in perspective in Illustrator. I know that a very perplexing issue is how to make this grid disappear. That is very simple. We go under the View menu and we go to Perspective Grid and in Hide Grid. And there we have an object created in perspective using Illustrator. Thank you for watching, and I hope that's helped you. Be sure to check out mikelanesman.com for 3 new ebooks that I have written relating to the latest features of Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign Creative Cloud 2014. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.